It doesn't look like a weapon at all, and that's exactly what makes it so unsettling. Sitting quietly on the flight deck of the USS George H.W. Bush the container blends into the organized chaos of naval aviation like it was never meant to be noticed. No markings, no visible systems, nothing to suggest it holds any kind of power. Sailors pass by it daily, focused on their routines, pre-flight checks and deck operations, rarely giving it a second glance. But the truth is, that container represents a silent admission. Something forced the Navy to put it there. Something that traditional weapons couldn't handle. And the more you think about it, the more unsettling it becomes. Because if a $6 billion nuclear-powered aircraft carrier needs a last-minute, bolted-on solution sitting openly on its deck, then whatever threat it's preparing for isn't just another evolution of warfare. It's a complete shift. And that realization raises a deeper question. What happened that made this necessary in the first place? The answer begins on April 19, 2026, when what seemed like a routine interception in the Gulf of Oman triggered something far more dangerous than anyone expected. A U.S. naval force moved in on an Iranian-flagged cargo vessel, an operation that would normally pass without global attention. But this time, the response didn't follow the script. There were no warships maneuvering into position, no missiles streaking across radar screens, no jets screaming overhead. Instead, something quieter and far more disruptive emerged. Small drones began appearing in waves, low-cost, expendable, and relentless. At first, they seemed insignificant, almost easy to dismiss. But then the numbers grew. Dozens became swarms, and swarms became a constant stream of incoming threats. Each one carried just enough payload to be dangerous, but more importantly, each one was designed to be disposable. The message wasn't about firepower, it was about pressure. Overwhelm the system, not outgun it. And in that moment, the rules that had governed naval combat for decades quietly stopped applying. What makes this situation even more dangerous is that the drones themselves aren't the real problem. The real threat is something far less visible but far more powerful: math. For decades, naval strategy was built around precision and superiority. Ships were designed to detect threats at long range and eliminate them with highly advanced interceptors. The assumption was simple: the enemy would field fewer, more valuable targets, and those targets could be neutralized efficiently. But swarm tactics completely invert that logic. Now, instead of a handful of high-value threats, the Navy is facing hundreds of low-cost ones. Each drone forces a decision, and each decision has a cost. The system still works perfectly on a technical level. It detects, locks, and destroys targets with incredible accuracy. But the equation behind it has changed. It's no longer about whether the Navy can stop the threat. It's about whether it can afford to keep doing it long enough. And that's where the imbalance begins to expose itself. As the swarm grows, the problem becomes impossible to ignore. Every ship in a carrier strike group has a finite number of interceptor missiles, stored in vertical launch systems that cannot be easily replenished during combat. On paper, these ships are heavily armed, carrying dozens, sometimes over 100, missiles ready to launch at a moment's notice. But against a sustained swarm, those numbers begin to shrink rapidly. Each incoming drone requires a response, and each response consumes a missile. The system doesn't discriminate based on cost or threat level, it simply engages. And eventually, the math catches up. If more drones are launched than there are missiles available, something will get through. Not because of a failure in technology, but because of a limitation in capacity. And once those launch cells are empty, the situation becomes critical. The ship can no longer defend itself effectively, forcing an entire carrier group, one of the most powerful military formations in the world, to withdraw from its position. Not defeated in battle, but pushed out by simple arithmetic. This is where the uncomfortable reality sets in. The missile, the very symbol of naval dominance, becomes part of the problem. Systems like the ISSM are engineering marvels, capable of intercepting fast-moving targets with incredible precision. But that precision comes at a cost, often exceeding $1 million per shot. When used against advanced threats, that cost makes sense. But when used against cheap, mass-produced drones, it creates a dangerous imbalance. Each successful interception still represents a loss in economic terms. The Navy is forced into a cycle where it spends significantly more to defend itself than the attacker spends to launch the threat. Over time, that imbalance becomes unsustainable. It's no longer just about winning engagements. It's about surviving them without exhausting resources. And that's the moment where the realization becomes unavoidable. Even perfect weapons can fail if they are used in the wrong context. And at that point, the Navy needed something fundamentally different. That need for a different solution is what led to the container. Instead of going through the traditional process of redesigning ships and integrating new systems over years, the Navy took a radically different approach. They built a weapon that could be deployed instantly, without altering the ship itself. The result was a self-contained laser system, packaged in a modular format and placed directly onto the flight deck. It didn't require structural changes or extended downtime. It simply needed power, and that's something a nuclear-powered carrier has in abundance. By connecting the system to the ship's reactors, the Navy effectively transformed raw energy into a defensive capability that doesn't rely on stored ammunition. This shift is more significant than it appears at first glance. For the first time, the carrier isn't limited by how many missiles it can carry. Instead, it's limited by how long it can generate power. And as long as the reactors are running, the system can continue operating. But even this breakthrough comes with its own set of limitations. Despite its advantages, the laser system is not the unstoppable solution it might seem to be. Unlike traditional weapons, it doesn't destroy targets instantly. It requires precision and time, maintaining a focused beam on a specific point long enough to cause structural failure. This process, known as dwell time, means the system can only engage one target at a time, and each engagement takes several seconds to complete. In ideal conditions, this is more than enough to neutralize small drones. But in less favorable environments, the effectiveness can drop significantly. Weather plays a major role. Rain, fog, and even airborne salt can interfere with the beam, reducing its range and power. Additionally, the system is not designed to handle larger, more resilient threats. It cannot replace traditional interceptors when facing high-speed missiles or heavily armored targets. Instead, it serves a very specific role within the defense structure, focusing on the types of threats that would otherwise drain valuable resources. And that specialization is both its strength and its limitation. As effective as this layered approach may be, it introduces a new concerned scale. The system works when the number of incoming threats is manageable, but what happens when that number increases beyond expectations? A swarm of 50 drones can be handled with careful coordination, but a swarm of 500 introduces a completely different level of complexity. The laser can only engage one target at a time, and even with perfect efficiency, there is a limit to how quickly threats can be neutralized. Meanwhile, more advanced threats could be introduced alongside the swarm, forcing the system to divide its attention. This creates a scenario where even improved defenses begin to strain under pressure. The problem shifts from cost imbalance to sheer volume, raising questions about whether any current system can handle the scale of future attacks. And as technology continues to advance, that scale is only expected to grow. All of this leads to a much larger and more difficult question about the future of naval warfare. The addition of the laser system represents a significant adaptation, but it doesn't eliminate the underlying issue. It simply manages it more efficiently. The carrier remains a powerful platform, capable of projecting force across the globe, but it is now operating in an environment where smaller, cheaper technologies can challenge its effectiveness in unexpected ways. The container on the flight deck is more than just a piece of equipment. It's a symbol of that shift. It reflects a moment where the balance of power is no longer defined solely by size, cost, or complexity, but by adaptability. And as new threats continue to emerge, the question is no longer whether systems like this will evolve, but whether they can evolve fast enough to keep up. Because if they can't, then even the most advanced warships in the world may find themselves facing a future where dominance is no longer guaranteed.